We are really excited to tell you about Parents' Rights in Education, why we got formed, what we've been able to accomplish in a short amount of time, and what we want to present and provide for parents across the state of Oregon. We are not against schools, educators, administrators, but our issue is with the Oregon Department of Education, the Oregon Health Authority, and legislation, which is building a wedge between the parent-child relationship. It doesn't matter your political or religious persuasion. The bottom line is, you get between me and my child, and there's going to be trouble. We consist of educators, school board members, parents, and grandparents who really want to protect and promote the rights of parents to guide the education and the health care of their children. We need to warn you that you will be seeing some unbelievably explicit material today. We strongly encourage that children not be present and have chosen to include uncensored examples because we have to take a look at what is being presented to children, to school districts around the state under the guise of being healthy and safe. Please take a look at these questions and answer them silently to yourself. These questions represent concepts that are being encouraged to be discussed in our schools across Oregon. Back in November of 2014, something amazing happened across the state of Oregon. But before I go there, I would like to give you a little insight into our organization. I am the co-founder and director of Parents' Rights in Education and a public school teacher for over 23 years. Back in 2010, I attended what's called an Adolescent Sexuality Conference, which is held in Seaside. It is there that I noticed about 1/3 of the attendees were minors, and included were counselors, teachers, administrators, and healthcare agencies. All were encouraged to take the information and the concepts presented at this conference to the school districts across the state of Oregon. What I saw there was shocking. I began to connect the dots and discover the key players that were promoting this to school districts across Oregon. Parents' Rights in Education was formed, and in 2014, we sent 6 individuals undercover into this conference. In November 2014, KOIN 6 investigative reporter Carla Castaño helped us expose what was going on and what was being presented as age-appropriate and healthy and safe for children. Here's a short segment of that report.
KOIN 6 investigates, should the state of Oregon be using your tax dollars to teach teenagers how to look up porn or how to sext?
All of this supposedly in the name of safe sex. Carla Castaño uncovers what's going on at a sex conference.
First, a warning. What we're about to talk about and show you is for an adult audience. Kids across the state as young as 11 go to the Oregon Adolescent Sexuality Conference through their schools. They have to get a signed slip from their parents, but there's a good chance their parents have no clue what we found going on inside.
So this is a website, and it's called Virtual Femme.
This adult website is part of a lesson plan at a workshop intended to teach kids about safe sex. And this audio of the keynote speaker talking to the kids.
You want to see my, and then there's a word, and it rhymes with hunt. So you could ask Emily to do one thing or another to
was recorded on a cell phone by a person who attended the conference and shared it with me, disturbed by what they saw and heard at the 2-day field trip for students in high school and middle school.
And I see penis, and that's all I see.
There were also handouts like this one encouraging cyber and phone sex. They went on to suggest things like bathe together, shave each other, wear each other's underwear, role play, lap dance, or striptease, buy an XXL pair of pajama bottoms and sleep in them together. All suggestions on how kids can engage in intimate activities without going all the way. Also, another workshop on how to pleasure someone else over the internet.
Teledominance basically refers to the control of sex toys, the use of sex toys over the internet.
It can be intimidating and difficult to know what to do if you encounter something at your child's school that is concerning to you. But it's important for you to realize that your parental rights do not end when you send your child off to school. The 2014 Adolescent Sexuality Conference includes many different organizations. These organizations have been promoting this conference for many, many years. 3 in particular that we would like to note are the Oregon Department of Education, the Oregon Health Authority, and Planned Parenthood. School board members and superintendents were being misled by government agencies as to what was truly going on at these conferences, but visuals are powerful. And school districts were beginning to have to justify just why they were sending minors to a conference such as this and how this content helped to promote healthy relationships, safer sex, reduce pregnancy rates, and STDs. Notice the childish look of this page, where the reader is encouraged to watch porn, use lube, masturbate while someone is watching. 2014 keynote speaker Corey Silverberg, who co-founded Sex Toy Shops in Canada, had workshops where he promoted cybersex, sex toys, BDSM, and gender experimentation. In this document, erotic text messages, striptease, skinny dipping, and mutual masturbation were encouraged. Here you see a vagina collage, which was featured at a 2013 workshop taught by minors about porn. The group was called YEPSA, Youth for the Education and Prevention of Sexual Assault. Brad Victor has been promoting comprehensive K-12 sexuality education in school districts across the state for years. Here we see him in the hot seat. He is the spokesperson for the Adolescent Sexuality Conference, and Carla Castaño from COIN has a few questions for him.
I requested an interview and asked him about it.
During this teledildonics session, the speaker spoke about masturbating via Skype. Is there a concern that that could possibly be recorded?
Is this interview going to go all down this line the whole time, Carla? Because if it is, I'm walking out, and I'm serious about this. I am.
These are legitimate questions.
No, they aren't legitimate questions.
Brad Victor is partially paid with state funds to put on the Oregon Adolescent Sexuality Conference in Seaside.
The material that is passed out at this conference is dedicated to preventing teen pregnancy, prevention of STDs, and also developing healthy relationships.
Well, it does talk about in some of the pamphlets encouraging things like looking up porn, having hidden hickeys, taking baths together, cyber sex, wearing each other's underwear, role play, strip teases. Do you think that prevents teen sex?
I'm not going to address that question. That question's inappropriate.
How is that inappropriate if it's in pamphlets that you hand out at your conference?
I'm not going to address that question.
I learned Brad Victor has 2 state agencies supporting him. The Oregon Health Authority helps sponsor the conference. I also found the Oregon Department of Education is on the steering committee.
The individuals are able to take this professional development opportunity back to their workplace.
Even Oregon Department of Education's Deputy Superintendent Rob Saxon weighs in.
Rob Saxton with the Oregon Department of Education sent a letter to school superintendents that addressed the conference. It reads, "We have also reviewed the content delivered by the presenters at the conference and believe their information was appropriate. There have been reports this was not the case, but we found that the reports made about the presentation of inappropriate materials were based on events that did not actually take place." After one superintendent gave me a copy of the letter, I sent numerous emails to Saxton's office asking for clarification about his statement. But Saxton and his staff declined multiple interview requests. So we caught up with him at the Capitol.
You sent out a letter saying that the speakers were appropriate at the Oregon Adolescent Sexuality Conference. I wanted to ask you about that. Did you think that taking kids to cyber sex websites where they were pretending to be ponies was appropriate?
I don't believe that there was anyone who took kids to cybersex websites in the story that you're talking about.
Well, we do have audio of that.
I think that you have some audio that doesn't show that. I think what you do have is that we have a presenter who was saying, here are some negative websites that you wouldn't want your child to go to.
It was the outcry and actions of law enforcement, legislators, superintendents, school board members, media, and Oregonians around the state that for the first time after 30 years, this conference, the largest of its kind on the Pacific Coast, would be canceled. The statewide and national attention that came about as a result of the cancellation of this conference was great. But Parents' Rights in Education also wants to help parents at the local level in their school districts. And one thing that we want them to know is that there is curriculum that the Oregon Department of Education is encouraging school districts to adopt. This curriculum is considered to be in compliance with the law, much like what was said about the conference. Here's an example of a curriculum called Making a Difference. Imagine, take yourself back to your 6th grade class, and imagine your teacher having a conversation which included questions like, what kind of sex can people have by themselves? What other things might people do with their mouths? What other things can people do with their hands? Here are some answers that the teacher is encouraged to elicit from students. It's important to note that this curriculum, endorsed by the Oregon Department of Education, is designed for students grades 6 through 8 and is considered abstinence-based, age-appropriate, and best practice. Besides curriculum, training, and policies, another concern is school-based health centers. Just who should be making healthcare decisions for your child or grandchild? Over 70 school-based health centers are in Oregon, located on the premise of the school and open during the school day. These are questions that are very important for you to ask. These two documents are very important to take a look at. In the standards for certification, school-based health centers have specific requirements that they must follow in order to get state and federal dollars. And often these requirements do not involve you, the parent. On the right, minors' rights, this document shows how minors are able to make serious, potentially life-altering medical decisions, all without your knowledge. With school-based health centers, it can be very challenging to know what kind of healthcare services your child is receiving. And in some cases, according to law, you may never know. In the case of reproductive health care services, students at any age can access this without your knowledge or consent. 14-year-olds can receive mental health services, and 15-year-olds can receive medical and dental services, all without parental notification or consent. We have legislation that is usurping parents' rights, but we also have committees under the umbrella of the Oregon Health Authority that are making some very shocking decisions for your children. Listen up.
A shocking new policy in Oregon would allow 15-year-olds to have sex change procedures without their parents even knowing about it.
And as Fox News correspondent Dan Springer reports, it's all on your dime.
Heather and Ainsley, with no public debate, the state of Oregon in January began covering the cost of puberty-suppressing drugs and sex change operations for people enrolled in their Medicaid program. Children as young as 15 years old can have this done even without their parents' consent. The American Psychiatric Association classifies gender dysphoria as a mental disorder in which a person identifies as the sex opposite of his or her birth. A 2008 study found that the vast majority of children with gender dysphoria grow out of it after puberty. But a transgender activist in Portland who had a sex change operation says the new policy will save lives through suicide prevention. She defends the young age it's available and keeping some parents in the dark.
Parents may not be supportive. They may not be in an environment where they feel the parent will affirm their identity, and this may have been going on for years.
15 is the age of medical consent in Oregon, but kids there still can't drive, give blood, or get a tattoo. The Oregon Health Authority declined a request for an on-camera interview. The former head of psychiatry at Johns Hopkins called Oregon's new policy a form of child abuse, and parents groups, when they finally learned of it, were outraged.
It is trespassing on the hearts, the minds, and the bodies of our children. They're our children. And for a decision, a life-altering decision like that to be done unbeknownst to a parent or a guardian it's mind-boggling.
Oregon officials can't say how many children have been treated for gender dysphoria since January. They project the cost of this to be about $150,000 a year. Heather, Ainsley?
Wow, Dan Springer, thank you.
Parents' Rights in Education is committed to researching, drilling down, and connecting the dots for busy Oregonians. That would include Oregon legislation. This last legislative session, 2015, we were able to testify, educate others, and watch for legislation that either supports or usurps the rights of parents. We intend to continue this. School officials and attorneys across the country are having serious discussions about gender and identity. That would also include around Oregon. What bathroom or locker room will a transgender student be allowed to use? Will a boy who identifies as a girl be allowed to shower or change in the girls' locker room or use the girls' bathroom? How will privacy and safety of all students be protected? Legally defensible common sense solutions are being bantered around the nation. Parents can and are speaking up about this. We intend to follow this issue and provide communities as much support and insight as possible. There are a growing number of individuals seeking out parents' rights in education for help, and we want to keep this momentum going. We're compelled to share with Oregonians the truth and the reality of what students and schools are being asked to present, such as things that you have seen today. However, we quickly want to come alongside and empower and equip them to deal with things at the local level. There is a sense of urgency and opportunities abound for us to come alongside parents, guardians, and even school board members and superintendents who are feeling pressure by the Oregon Department of Education. So be encouraged. Things are happening, not only in Oregon, but across the nation, where parents are taking a stand for their rights and getting the attention of government agencies and letting them know that these are our children and we have the final say in the education and healthcare services that they receive. So please let us know if we can be of help.